Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, the High Guy Jacobs, and today we continue our deep dive series into all the armaments currently available in Doomsday Last Survivor. We've already gone through riders, we've already gone through ranged. Now it's time for us to tackle the infantry side of things and show you a little bit about where to kind of focus your hones from there. But before we do, don't forget to like the video, comment down below what your favorite part of the game is. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and if you can, go ahead and click that join button and become a member today. Help support the stream in any way that you can, whether it's 5 views or by joining and becoming a member, by simply commenting and saying that you like what we do here, or heck, even if you say that you don't like what we do here. I appreciate the engagement either way. God, I'm a dick sometimes. All of that being said, folks, let's dive into this here, and let's see what we can't show you in regards to the infantry armaments. Now, I am an infantry main, so obviously I have my armaments. That's what I've been focusing on. We can talk a little bit about that, why I've pushed them the way that I have. But ideally, the entire premise is to go through the infantry, show you what's there, and I'm hoping by this time you'll have noticed a little bit of a pattern performing here. For example, the marksman crossbow brings ranged squad lethality and ranged squad attack. The Uzi subgun brings rider squad lethality and rider squad attack. So what do you think the shotgun's going to bring? The spike shotgun is bringing infantry squad lethality and infantry squad attack. Which means that the rhino gun shield is bringing you infantry squad lethality and basic attack damage. Just like what we're getting here, it's all kind of stat and parcel for the same thing, so we're getting the same buffs across all the troop types. Just think about where you're using them, though. If, for example, you put this on a garrison main, you're not nearly getting the benefits because squad's basic attack damage, you're only doing basic attack to one target at a time. But if you put it on a field fighter, for example, that might be more beneficial, as that's where you're going to be doing a lot of your targeted attacks. Again, though, diminishing returns. Y'all have to remember about diminishing returns. If you don't know about diminishing returns, it's a very simple theory. It's a very simple process, pardon me, not theory. But it's very simple. If, for example, I have 500 lethality and I have 10% attack, what's more valuable? Adding 50 more lethality to my 500 or adding 5% attack to my 10% attack? Well, adding 5% attack to my 10% attack is more beneficial than 50 onto my 500 lethality already, because of the fact that I'm already... It's basically like the more of one stat that you have, the less valuable it is adding to that stat. All right? So again, a lot of this is about balance. If you find out that you've already got a decent amount of attack going throughout, and I'll remind you, you can see what your march has by simply clicking on your hero, clicking on the armament section, and clicking this little red button. So this will tell me that my attack here is 14.2% plus squad attack at 6.6%, which is going to equal a 20.8%. But I also have lethality at 642. So this is a prime example. What's better, 65 squad lethality or 5% squad attack? And in my situation, adding 5% squad attack is worth more than adding 50 squad lethality. Okay? So again, it all depends on what you have, what you're running yourself. But don't forget, easiest way, the little 3 buttons will pull up all the attributes that your armaments are providing. Okay? Again, we'll talk about hones here and how those work here in a little bit, but the concept is very much the same. Based on what you need is going to be the armaments that you go for. Okay? So we've already gone through the guns. Let's look at the helmets. We've got the Stego Helm bringing infantry squad block and infantry squad defense versus Welding Helmet bringing infantry squad block and counter damage taken reduced. Now again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's really only one source of counter damage, and that's the target that you're doing basic attack damage to. So you're only removing that off of one source of damage, whereas increasing your squad defense is going to increase the defense across all the damage types that are being done. Okay? So in my opinion, the Stego Helmet is much better than the Welding Helmet. But that's entirely up to you. The Welding Helmet is going to be more along the lines of fighting in the field, probably. Stego Helm more on the defensive side of things. But again, all depending on what you need more defensive. You might find that having this counter damage might be more beneficial if you've already stacked defense really high. So keep that in mind. Diminishing returns. Next, when we look at the vests, we've got the Viper chest rig bringing infantry squad block and infantry squad defense, or the reinforced armor bringing infantry squad block or basic attack damage taken reduced. And this one might be a benefit, for example, if you're going up against Chasey, because Chasey hits so hard with that basic attack damage. Having a flat reduction on that basic attack damage that she's doing might do better. Granted, Chasey's not necessarily running rallies as often. She kind of is, I guess, because she still has the skills tree. And she works more on she's more of a garrison hero. But you can start to see how even in that situation, a reduction of that basic attack damage has merit, depending obviously on what your stats are or what you're trying to do. Okay. So the backpack, we've got sturdy backpack providing overall squad counter damage and infantry squad attack versus overall squad counter damage and infantry squad defense. So depending on what you want to be, if you're punching in the field, you might go attack. If you're defending in garrison, you might go defense. Depending on what you need inside your process. And remember, those stats are going to depend, right, on influencing based on, say it with me now, diminishing returns. I'm hoping by the end of this that you really understand diminishing returns so that you can balance your own accounts for what you need it to be. This is exactly why the conversation is never... You can never have a conversation about who's the best character or what's the best armament or what's the best hones, because in all metrics of this game, there's so many layers to it. And it's not like you're going to sacrifice... I mean, for the average player isn't going to sacrifice I got into a discussion earlier. Someone had asked me, well, what's better? Infantry squad attack at 5% or squad attack at 4.5%? And it's very simple. That minuscule difference, that 0.5% difference, is only going to matter at the top echelon of the game. If you are lucky enough to get a red hone max squad attack at 4.5%, don't get rid of that one in lieu of an infantry squad attack at 5%, right? Because that small minority isn't going to influence near as much for the average player. At the very tippy top, where it really matters in inches on who's more powerful and whose armaments are honed that much better, right? When all of that when it really matters, who's got, for example, more skins and more marked skins and who's got better, like that kind of stats stacked. But for the average player, for the average person, you have a lot of freedom to keep those ones, right, that are there. You don't have to get rid of squad attack in lieu of infantry squad attack. If, for example, you have a garrison one you can get rid of, or a travel speed one you can get rid of, or a rally hone you can get rid of. You see what I'm saying? So that's where a lot of this freedom comes in, a lot of the freedom to kind of customize your own account to your own play style. Okay? Next, on to... Did we do backpack? Yeah, we did backpack. On to pants. For pants, we've got Survivor Pants, providing infantry squad lethality and infantry squad attack. Or the Stealth Pants, providing infantry squad lethality and squad counter damage. In my opinion, I'm stacking counter damage on my garrison as hard as I can. Because at the end of the day, that's where they're going to be using the majority of their damage. They're going to be doing a ton of squad counter damage. Right? Because even in multi-rally garrisons, they're doing squad counter damage. That's kind of a good place to focus. But, depending, if I don't have near as much attack, maybe adding Survivor Pants with the extra 5% is going to be more beneficial. So always keep that in mind. Next, we've got shoes. Pretty simple. The anti-blast boots providing overall squad basic attack damage and infantry squad defense versus the plated boots providing squad basic attack damage and infantry squad attack. Pretty simple. One's going to be more defensive, one's going to be more damaging. Super simple. So, with all of those regular legendaries out of the way, let's dive into the superbs, which, as I've mentioned, I'm working on collecting myself and letting them grow organically because, unfortunately, these are much more expensive. But there's a reason. They are much stronger. Right? Not only do they provide a third stat, not only do they provide more important stats, but they also provide a magical, mystical, rare hone in the 5th slot once you get them awakened to 5-star. Now, yes, it takes a heck of a long time to get them to 5-star. I think the highest that I have is a 2-star vest. Okay? It takes a long time. But in reality, you only kind of need one superb march per player unless, again, you're fighting at the absolute top echelons of the game. At which point you might have to have couples. But that's a totally different game. That is a whales conversation, not the average low spending to free playing player. Okay? So, in my opinion, I let these grow organically, put them up as I can. They're never the real focus. The real focus are the legendary ones because those are the ones that I can get a lot of. I can put hones into those ones. I put hones into my other ones as much as I need to. The extra ones, obviously, because those ones we can keep. And you're always consistently working on those ones. Okay? So, when we look at these superbs, the barbed machine gun is bringing infantry squad lethality, overall skill damage dealt, and overall squad attack. With a magical, mystical, rare hone in its 5th spot. Or its 5th star unlocking spot, pardon me. The anti-blast helmet is bringing infantry squad block, infantry squad damage reduction, flat damage reduction, and squad defense. The anti-blast armor bringing infantry squad block, skill damage taken by troop reduced, and squad HP. And like I've mentioned, squad HP is the most sought after attribute. It's very difficult to get, so any place that you can get it is typically a win. And since skill damage makes up, I believe, about 60% of the damage in the game, you're looking at a nice flat reduction out of a decent chunk of damage. Okay? The back armor, bringing squad counter damage increased, basic attack damage taken reduced, and infantry squad attack. The fine plated pants are bringing infantry squad lethality, infantry squad damage boost, and squad attack, overall squad attack. And the cool part is we're talking infantry squad damage and infantry squad damage reduction. So these are flat damage reduction numbers and flat damage multiplier numbers, which are very, very valuable. So if you can get those, you're in a much better position. And then lastly, the armored boots bringing squad's basic attack damage, counter attack damage taken reduced, and infantry squad attack increase. So obviously getting all 6 of these armaments sets you up pretty well on that march. Lots of extra damage, lots of extra defense, lots of HP. Really, really helps out, but of course those superbs are harder to get. Now, you can do like I do, keep the fragments and use them as you need, keep the other ones and use them as you need, use these ones to level them up once you can. And doing that, I have been able to amass this collection of superbs. Oh, except this one here. That's the collection of superbs. I'm just using it right now. Right? So I do have some of the superbs that I'm working on. Obviously, I've got what? Like a 2-star there, a 2-star here. They take a heck of a long time, but it's what I'm working on. Right? A little at a time. Now, when we talk about hones, let's jump in here and actually talk about hones. Because at the end of the day, hones are a huge question, and there's always, like, everyone always asks about hones, and I really want to make sure that we can pound home pound home a couple of understandings. First and foremost, these armaments are basically boosting up your individual march lines. Okay? And how those calculations are done, a lot of it has to do with the types of troops you send. So if I send, for example, I believe it's Miyamoto. Miyamoto has a skill that says, when leading only infantry squads, damage increases by 12%. Okay? When leading only infantry squad, damage increases by 12%. If I lead Miyamoto with infantry squad and riders, he's not getting that increased damage by 12%. Okay? Automatically, he's not getting that infantry damage by 12%. If I look at Miyamoto, and we notice here, it says infantry squad attack increases by 40%, and travel speed increases by 25%. Because this is all in one sentence, that's specific to infantry. So infantry squad attack goes up by 40%. But if I send him with infantry and riders, well, the riders don't get the infantry, they don't get the squad attack increase, and they don't get the travel speed increase, which means now my march isn't running at the max speed that it can. It's running on the max speed of those troops. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a situation that says you have to be aware of what troops you're putting in your marches. But all of that comes down to your armaments and your hones. So if I look here, I'll pull up Thunder because he's my main garrison hero. And we start to go through some of these things. We can give a little bit of an idea on what our premise is for Thunder, for our garrison, right? So I've got some garrison counter damage because, like I've mentioned, when it comes to the hones, right? And I'll go through these hones just right here. You want to focus on the specific hones because they provide a more potent attribute, right? 0.5 to 5% versus 0.5 to 4.5%. So you want to focus these ones if you can over the overall squad block and lethality. Because even here, 6 to 60 versus 7 to 75. Right? So when they're focused, it's a lot better. And it helps a lot. It helps a lot to achieve those max numbers. But again, remember, that's really only dependent on the absolute top. So if I look here, for example, I've got squad block and squad lethality. And I've got infantry counter damage. So once I look at these stats and I realize that I need a little bit more attack and I need probably a little bit more block and I can sacrifice a little bit of lethality, I might look at him and I might take out this lethality and go for some squad defense. You know what I'm saying? I might go for some infantry squad defense. I might take out this garrison counter damage instead for some infantry squad lethality. Maybe another lethality. Maybe another block. Maybe some attack, because I know that my attack is really lingering. And I'm already getting 7.5 defense here, so I don't necessarily need more defense. Right? So these are just some of the ways to think about it. And at the end of the day, a lot of it's going to be based on luck. Like, here's my point. Infantry squad lethality is 65. I'm not going to get rid of that. So that one's going to be stuck there, you know. Even though this is a defensive unit, I'm not getting rid of that red because reds are very hard to come by. Infantry squad block, I'm not getting rid of that 65 because they're hard to come by. I'm not getting rid of this squad block at 60 to try to push for 65. It doesn't make any sense, right? That small difference isn't going to be huge in comparison. Right? So it's and then you always work on the lowest ones and work to get those up first. So if I'm looking to increase this guy up to 4 mil, I'm going to start working on maybe the squad lethality at 29. I might look at squad attack at 2.5, get rid of that one and upgrade that. Obviously, this blue infantry squad lethality has to go. But you simply work on the worst stats that you have and upgrade those in time. And in my opinion, if you look at the game itself and what it kind of wants you to do, infantry itself has the lowest attack and the highest defense. So through diminishing returns, you get more value. It's kind of a weird opinion, but you get more value putting into attack since they already have high defense. So they kind of need some attack. I've put high defense because I'm trying to fight uphill right now. I'm effectively our garrison main in our alliance at 130 million when we have players at 200 million or 190 million, right? But I'm a little bit more effective and efficient because of how I've done some of my hones. I can sacrifice some of this defense for a bit more attack if I wanted to. I can sacrifice some, you know, some block or lethality for attack if I wanted to. So there's lots of kind of variety on what I'm able to do. But so far, what I've achieved is a situation that allows me to be defensive against players that are much stronger than me and give us the time that we need to react and respond and run counter rallies and swarm rallies down and stuff like that. Okay? But a lot of that comes down to, again, understanding what position you're trying to do, understanding what stats and attributes you have, and working within the system to get a nice balance, get a good influence on the attributes that you're working on, and make sure that you're focusing on diminishing returns. Okay? Because at the end of the day, as I've said everything, it comes down to hyper-focus. It comes down to like pinpoint accuracy, pinpoint efficiency, if you don't want to end up spending a crap ton of money. And unfortunately, I'm not in the position to do so. Right? Not yet anyway. IGG doesn't pay its content creators, and until you build up one heck of a following on YouTube, it doesn't pay very much either. So until that position, I'm, you know, struggling in the same sense. But with all that being said, that's exactly why I'm going to ask you guys to like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, fill out the notification bell so you get any new drops, and become a member today. Click the join button. It's only $6.99 a month, Canadian, which if you know anything about exchange rates, our dollar is worth absolutely nothing right now. So I think it's like $4.50 or $5 American. And it really goes a long way to help maintain the channel, help maintain the system, or help maintain, you know, the content coming out, maintaining, you know, the education for you guys, the help for you guys, and obviously helping me maintain it, everything on my end as well. So if you can, go ahead and click the join button. But other than that, folks, thanks very much for tuning in. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.